It doesn't get better than this, but it kind of does.
One more time.
One more time.
But this is really close to the best it could
Really
possibly
close.
be.
Isaak Krut starting off with the tunic, and what a way to start the
Move
game.
that Bravo forward, baby. It's time for a little bit of fusion. Going to have a big attack starting off this first turn. Looks like red break ground is the order of business.
All right, well, nothing you can do here. Again, when it comes down to those first attacks, typically filtration is something that you have to keep in mind. But this is probably the only situation where Starvo will press damage.
Absolutely. Force through that damage. When you have access to dominate the way Starvo does, it's really... I hate using the word free when it comes to TCGs, but those free attacks where you start your opponent at 34 life feels real good. You see Pablo able to filter the hand a bit, get some things out that may not have served him across these first few turns, but really, I would give round one to Isaak Krut.
Now, Michael Hamilton at the Calling in Indianapolis took a different approach. This looks like Isaak really wants to be aggressive in this matchup. Michael Hamilton took more of a control approach, more of a fatigue approach. In this case, Isaak Krut is going to be throttled down. He wants to complete the Kessel run in under 12 parsecs, my friend. He wants to get this done, but a yellow belittle is looking, and it's good. That is going to go check on the Bounding Demigon. We're going to go see some minnowisms here.
Yeah, we talked a lot about Pablo's commitment to this belittle minnowism chain. Just hard focused on it. Has 6 belittles in the deck, the 5 minnowisms. So really into the idea of this is how you maximize resources as the chain deck, as well as damage and get those non-attack actions. I get the appeal. I understand, you know, it's a bit of a controversial point among chains, whether belittle minnowism is worth it. Put me on team belittle. I absolutely think this is key to chain success.
There are people out there in the community who have been on belittle minnowism since it was printed, as that is the truth. If they, you know, if they can get a tattoo of anything, it would be those two names right next to each other. But 2, go again. Again, you're checking for a card in the hand with a base attack of 3 or less so that you can go ahead and fish out a minnowism. Those minnowisms can do 2 things, right? They can either beef up an attack or they can be extra resources.
Yeah, and you'll see the chain player do both throughout this round for sure. Here you see the red minnowism. That's going to go ahead and give the next attack action card with 3 or less base attack, +3, looking to push through that early damage on Isaak Krut.
Yeah, I
make this Soul Shackle and get a little go again on top of it.
Yeah, and this is that start. Again, chain players are going to start out slow, but you're going to see this ramp up, and that's off the back of those Soul Shackles. Now, there's going to be home runs with Soul Shackles, and they're going to be big whiffs. What are you, as Pablo, hoping that to avoid off of those whiffs off the top?
I mean, you never want to see your Art of Wars hit the Banish Zone. They're just such a key card to your strategy. They increase your damage output so dramatically. They allow you to set up your hand, get more resources. So that's where it really feels bad. But this early in the game, anything you get from your Banish Zone, it's basically all upside. You're not reliant on your Banish Zone early. You're trying to put together your belittle minnowisms and find damage where you can. But in those later turns, Soul Shackle 4, Soul Shackle 5, that's when you really are reliant on hitting things like Bounding Demigon, one of the best things you can find. 0 cost attack really allows you to get wide with chain.
First usage of the Stalagmite, Bastion of Eisenloft, is going to block some, give a Frostbite as well. And we're going to take up the Tunic. It's now to Isaak. Isaak does not have a fusion, but he does have a Spinal Crush, and this is a significant card and a big-time threat to Pablo.
Yeah, Pablo has to think you really can't afford to lose go again as chain. That is what your deck is based on. That's what you want to do. Make it happen. Find those go agains. So I'm assuming we're going to see some amount of blocking here from Pablo. Of course, Crush Effect only going to go down should it deal 4 more damage. So you find, you know, a mid-sized block here, prevent that Crush Effect, and you can still put something together on your turn as Pablo.
Yeah, there's no Dominate here. Crush Effect, 4 or more damage means no go again for Pablo. And let's be real, Chain is all about that go again. So you can, in this case, donate 3 cards, let's say. You're preserving an arsenal. We might see a turn here where Pablo's just going to eat a little bit of damage, maybe create a Soul Shackle, maybe create a Rune Chant, and just walk on.
Yeah, I think that's completely fine. And here you see a block being lined up. Looks like a fairly sizable one from Pablo.
And in this case, I mean, if we're counting the major threats to Chain, there's going to be the 3 Oakenolds, there's going to be the 3 Crippling Crushes, but also those Spinal Crushes are devastating. So Pablo has to be very aware and count those major threats, because those are going to pump the brakes. But we're opening up here with a Shadow Puppetry that's going to give +1 attack and go again to the next attack that comes through. This is a Ghostly Visit coming in for 5 with go again.
Yeah, seems like a decent little start to the turn. Should this hit, chance to go ahead and maybe banish another relevant card, which you always love to do as the Chain player. Shadow Puppetry, just so efficient, so clean. It empowers so many good Chain turns at such a little cost.
One of the best cards to come out of that set is Shadow Puppetry. I know that when that set was out there, Chane was major. That was one of those cards that you're looking for. You're opening up a pack, you want to find a Shadow Puppetry, and there it is. Again, there's going to be 3 of them floating around in the deck, and they're part of it, again, Chane can manufacture Go Again on its own with the Shackle, but there's so many other ways. Mavrian Skies, Shadow Puppetry. Go Again for Chane is how you beat players, because it's not about going tall, it's about really just eventually forcing your opponent to run out of ways to block.
Yeah, it's what the hero is built around. It's designed to get as wide as possible. And look at this, a nice hit off that Shadow Puppetry. Going to get an unhallowed rights into the banished zone. Chane's going to make a Soul Shackle, meaning the next Shadow or Runeblade card played this turn is going to go ahead and get Go Again. It is going to be unhallowed rights coming through, putting Howl from Beyond back on the bottom of the deck, and that could be important as we get to those late turns should this go long.
Howl from Beyond has that blood debt, right? So you will be able to access it with Chane late game, and look at how beautiful this is that unhallowed rights, Go Again, 1 resource floating. You played the non-attack, you played the attack, you know what's coming.
Isaak wisely sussing out that when you have that 1 resource floating, you generally know what your opponent is trying to do next. That means it's time for a Rosetta Thorn attack, using the Bastion there to go ahead and stuff that and end Pablo's turn. So that Bastion, it may have only quote unquote blocked for 1.
Yeah.
No, it blocked for 5 there.
It blocked for 5.
It made a huge difference in that turn.
This is so much of the discussion that I've had with other players in terms of what that Bastion represents. And again, if you think Bastion's only good for 3 block, you're not looking close enough.
Absolutely not. And here's a big play from Isaak. He's going to go ahead and fuse that Oakenhold, not super fuse, just regular fuse. Does have the 2 elements that are going to give that the devastating on-hit effect, as well as a little bit of Dominate, a little bit of +2.
This is the fuse you want. It's not the Starvo fuse, because if you fuse the Oakenhold itself, that's where you get the on-hit effects. That's what's important. So again, coming in for 9, no Go Again, not important. Dominate, on-hit. That's how you beat Chane.
And I was going to say, I was expecting Pablo to go ahead and reach for that Carrion Husk. You talk about equipment that can soak up 5-6 damage.
Man.
Carrion Husk is the king of that. Going to throw that in front of that Oakenhold and protect the hand for the turn. All 3 pieces of equipment getting in on the action here, making a huge block, soaking up that Oakenhold. And that's got to be a little deflating if you're Isaak. I mean, he knew it was coming. That's what Chane players do. But still, you've put forth a really, really aggressive shot with that fused Oakenhold. And it cost the Chane player very little, honestly, in terms of what they are going to be able to do on their next turn.
But the good news is for Isaak is that you did get it out, and you did get it out early.
True.
And you're right. It does suck when you go ahead and you present such a devastating attack like the fused Oakenhold. But buying a Carrion Husk, it was there the whole time. It's not like they top-decked it. It wasn't in Arsenal. It's there living on the board. And there was a time where Carrion Husk was arguably the best equipment in the game. Crown of Seeds came out and, changed some things. But
I still think it's close, Flake. I would give the edge to Crown of Seeds, but Carrion Husk is such an incredible, incredible piece of equipment.
Belittle, red, that's 3 Go Again. It's going to check that Bounding Demigod and go hunt for a Minnowism. Now, it could be a blue, it could be a red. We'll see how this goes in terms of, if you're hunting for blue, you're getting it for fuel. If you're hunting for red, it's got to go ahead and make something taller, right?
Yep, and we'll have to see what Pablo's plan is on this turn. I can't quite make out the color of that Minnowism that he's pulled to near his hand, but ultimately is going to make this turn a bigger one. Keep making those turns bigger as Chane. Eventually, you'll exhaust your opponent's resources, push through that damage, but Isaak still sitting strong over on that side, does have Crater Fist, hasn't done any blocking yet. Obviously, those other permanent resources, Crown of Seeds, and the Null Rune Boots, which we haven't mentioned yet, Flake. Going to go ahead and use that to prevent some of the arcane damage Chane is capable of doing.
Also worth noting here is the fact that Isaak Krut, who's now, taken some damage as well, going down to 26, the Arcanite Skullcap from Pablo cannot block anymore. The health totals are such as not going to allow that to happen. There's a Bounding Demigod for 6, which is getting the benefit of that Minnowism.
Yeah, buffed up nicely, and as we noted last time, when there's 1 resource floating,
Ayo.
You know what to expect. It's Rosetta Thorn time. That's going to go ahead, get a 2-2. Nice start thus far from Pablo. Isaak falling to 20, but Flake, you know what happens in Flesh and Blood when you're sitting there soaking up damage. You've got a plan for the next turn, and let's see what Isaak has to offer as the turn gets passed back to him.
No, man, you got 1 resource floating with a Go Again against Chane. It's like being at a karaoke and seeing that drunk guy in the corner. You know when he goes up there, it's going to be Sweet Caroline, right?
Every time.
Every time. Every time. Stop it with the Sweet Caroline.
Expecting 2 actions to start the turn here from Isaak Krut. I think this is going to be a fusion turn. Let's see. Yep, there is that Bravo pulled forward. It's a good bet when you're going ahead and soaking up damage.
Oh!
Big swing from Isaak Krut. It's the crippling crush coming down for a huge amount of damage.
And look at that carry on Huss saying, glad I dodged this bullet. It's just huge. It's coming in for 13. You know it's massive when a D12 is like, I need some help. I need a buddy.
This is the Starvo game in a nutshell. Get those fusions, pull forward that hero, and just go to town with your crippling crush, your spinal crush, all those tremendous attacks, your Oakenolds, mess up your opponent's plan. There's no way for Pablo to get out of this turn in a favorable position. Things are going to happen, and they're going to be bad.
True story. As somebody who has roomed with Chane for several events, that's basically him getting out of the shower and getting ready for the event.
It's got to be intimidating.
It is. I mean, look, these are those backstage pass kind of privileges that we as casters get. That is it. Chesty McGee over there is basically based on Mr. Tan and Grace.
Yeah, I tend to look more like Chane, kind of like decrepit, falling apart a little bit, missing an arm. That's generally how I rock things when I get out of the shower.
Okay. All right, so we got 2 D12s of damage coming in. That's a 13 dominate on hit. You're going to have to peel away 2 cards, my friend Pablo. These are the nightmares that Pablo's going to have to digest. Again, keeping track of those major crippling crushes, spinal crushes, the orange crushes, all of the different crushes.
Grape crush.
That was a good one.
Cherry crush.
I never liked cherry. Get out of here. Orange is the way to go. But either way, it's the on-hit effects that Isaak is really going to be needing to find and being able to fuse. And we saw how important that was against Kano. Similar importance here against the Chane player.
I mean, if you've got any questions why Starvo is among the top heroes in the game, just look at that turn. I mean, look at the damage output on that turn. Look at the on-hit effects. Frostbite, 2 cards from hand. All that going along with a ridiculous 17 damage. Just preposterous from Isaak, and I think he's drawn another crippling crush. Does he have the fusion on top of it?
No, we got to find out if he's got the gas for it, but at the same time, Pablo just went ahead and burnt away an Art of War and is filling that banish zone with more blood debt. So part of the strategy for Isaak here, extra detriment, insult to injury. If you don't have cards to pitch away to play those cards out of banish zone, those are going to start like that fuse burning. So Chane has to be aware that Chane will eventually be its own enemy.
Absolutely right. That's part of the drawback when you're granted the ability to play from your banish zone, to get that quote-unquote extra hand. There's got to be some downside. It is that blood debt. Of course, the Carrion Husk always going to tick. The rest of these options, we'll have to see if Pablo can clear. It looks like we're lining up a block here on this Evergreen. This is just a good, fair Evergreen. 7 damage for 3 resources.
Dude,
no on-hit.
How spoiled are we as people who have played Starvo, where it's like, it's just 7? Like, come on, man. Like, it's still 7, and every little bit matters, especially against Chane. We're going to go ahead, and I guess that's an activation. Is that an activation of the Spellbound Creepers?
It is on Isaac's turn, so let's see what Pablo's up to here.
Fascinating move.
Hey. Tome of Feyendel. Okay, that makes sense.
Draw some cards. No problem. Fill up the hand. That's one way to do it. Again, if you're going to get, if some cards are going to be peeled away, that I don't believe that was played from Arsenal. I don't think so. Or no, was that played from Arsenal? It was. All right, so life gain as well. Gain 1 life for every card in hand. I believe you went up to 4 there, so we're going to get up to 17.
Interesting swing there from Pablo. Has really sort of taken some of the wind out of Isaac's sails, sort of negated some of the damage that has been put out thus far. And now we're going to see if he can swing back. Does have 2 blanks on that banish, but also does find a key bounding Demigon. Decent turn here should Pablo want it.
But that blank that you're talking about is another Art of War that was just essentially put through the paper shredder. Don't need it, and it is gonzo. So Pablo looking at his hand here, seeing what he can cobble together. Eventually, he's going to have to, get wide, get nasty, because this is not one of those matchups, I think, when you're playing against Prism and they're on fatigue, you could be patient. You could load up that blood debt and then go at it. But if Pablo gets too patient, if Isaak finds a turn where he could really put on the pressure with another Crippling Crush or another Oakenold, and you have no cards to clear that blood debt, you will die to your own demise. Yeah, to your own shenanigans here with that massive blood debt pile.
Yeah, it's usually Levia dying silently impotently to her own blood debt.
Silently. She looks like she's like, "Arr!" She looks
Yeah.
like she's like, it's some sort of shrieking opera going on.
Yeah, but it can happen to Chane as well. Should Starvo find offense in the right moment, should it disrupt enough in key spots, Pablo's going to have to avoid that. Going to start using Howl from Beyond. That's going to go ahead and charge up that bounding Demigon from the Banish Zone, unlocked by the non-attack action, and 7 damage headed the way of Isaak Krut. Isaak at 16. That's a vulnerable life total.
Most certainly, and we're getting into that magic zone of 4, 5, 6 Shoal Shackles where things can get really out of hand.
No, absolutely.
That heart of, that Tome of Fyendal, bringing that 4 life may absolutely factor in.
Oh, I think so. I think that was a big swing in this matchup, actually, for Pablo.
So 7 damage is being thrown at Isaak Krut here, and that Bounding Demigon does have go again off of the Soul Shackle that was created from Chane. As you can see, all the cards are nicely lined up so we can see exactly what's going on. 7 damage. We're going to go ahead and pitch the Blizzard, and we're going to go ahead and Art of War here as well. And this is going to do more, I think, than just beef up the defense. I think Isaac's looking for more answers, potentially.
Yeah, makes sense. And Art of War is just such a versatile card, right? We often talk about it in the context of pushing damage. We saw it from Lexi's all tournament long. We see it from Chane constantly, and it's almost always about that +1 offense. What you forget about sometimes, Flake, is the +1 defense. Starvo's, however, very interested in beefing up their defense for a turn, getting a little action on the backside of those cards, and finding good blocks.
I mean, when it's things that you're forgetting about that start with D, it's Dre and defense.
Yeah.
And frankly, in this case, let's be real, Isaak Krut knows all about both, and he's going to go ahead and beef up some of that defense, but you can see him deep in thought here. So Isaak is just trying to parse out, maybe Isaak has a really good hand here, and he wants to see how far this train's going to go in terms of damage, and I don't think you can close it out against Pablo necessarily, but perhaps he's got enough to really pressure it down. That 4 life, again, is going to be the story moving forward.
Yeah, worth keeping track of. I think Isaak too young to have forgotten about Dre. Maybe has never heard of Dre. That wouldn't surprise me.
Completely so. Poor guy. We'll teach him. Don't worry about it. Next time I'm going to bring a card for him to sign and, like, a CD. I'd just be like, here. He needs to be like,
we'll not know what that is.
What's a CD? Yeah.
Baffled.
All right. Music was physical?
Yeah.
Yeah, once upon a time, bucko. All right, so there's the Art of War, and still presenting. There's 7 damage that's been presented. Isaac's still kind of trying to figure out, again, that Art of War is done at instant speed. He's going to go ahead and present his defense here.
Yeah, it looks like 7 block, an Oaken Old, and a Break Ground. So that's a 2 and a 3. Add +1 to both those. Find some good defense here. Time for more action from the Chane, though. Mauve Skies means whatever's played next. Going to go ahead and go again. It's going to be that Rift Bind from the Banish Zone. So did a nice job clearing out that Blood Data on this turn. Also, fine offensive output, honestly. And still more to come should Pablo choose.
It's great to see Art of Wars played on defensive turns.
I agree.
And that's what shows where the good players are, because most people are just, their brain is geared to think that Art of War is more of an offensive tactic. It's sort of a supercharger to your turns to really get things going. But Isaak Krut needs to be aware of where the value in that card lies and not being greedy, holding on to it and just taking damage. And he has done a good job of saying, all right, well, I got more. We just got to survive this and we'll see. You cannot get to turn 2 if you can't survive turn 1, so to speak. And that's kind of where he's at right now.
Very true. Nice job here from Pablo. Just diversifying the damage, making sure those Spellbound Creepers stick around. Rune Chan, arcane damage from Rosetta Thorn. Challenging that Rosetta Thorn on Spellbound Creepers. Big play from the Starvo decks. In fact, some folks going as far as playing Shock Charmers to counter Rosetta Thorn activations and blow up creepers. Turns out they also had the best card against Kano. Pretty important for this tournament.
Yeah, you mentioned this yesterday, and that was incredibly adept about just the sheer impact that Shock Charmers can have. Just explain a little bit about why Shock Charmers is such a clutch addition in certain cases and how it can be so detrimental to the Chane player.
Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest cards that is going to come out of this metagame. Basically, Spellbound Creepers requires you to do arcane damage. You can go ahead, cash in those Shock Charmers and their Spell Void to prevent the arcane damage done by Rosetta Thorn in a spot and blow up those creepers. However, Flake, if you're real slippery and you want to get nice with it, and you know this is coming as the Chane player, you can attack with Rosetta Thorn, throw the arcane damage at your own face. I swear that works. I know you're not believing me right now. I promise it works, and that will count as doing the arcane damage for that Spellbound Creepers.
I will say this. You have never lied to me in my entire life.
That you know of.
I guess you're right. But I've known you for, I think, 18 minutes.
Yep.
And my goodness, they have been a good 18 minutes.
Good. I'm glad.
All right. So in this case, we're back at the games, ladies and gentlemen. Isaak Krut on 14 health. Pablo Pintor at 16. This is the semifinals. Chane versus Starvo. We're going to go ahead and banish off the top. Those are three whiffs in a row.
That ain't it.
Four
that
whiffs in a row.
And that was not. Look at the. Okay, you have sold me as Isaak Krut is the coldest person in the room. Did you see what he did there?
Nothing.
No, he moved.
Oh, what?
He moved. Like,
Get out of town.
He did a full flop back in his chair, like just complete relief. And that's how you know the stakes have gotten high.
No, that wasn't him. That was his puppeteer that operates him.
I swear he flopped back in that chair.
I believe he's some sort of marionette at times.
Maybe it was shadow puppetry, but I think that was actual Isaak Krut letting out a big sigh of relief.
All right, well, we got a shackle either way. That's one thing that Chane's going to do essentially almost every turn. And here comes a soul shackle, allowing you to give go again to the next, the soul shackle itself it's the chain text that allows the next blade attack to get go again. In this case, it's just a bounding demigon, 3 go again, but it's damage, and that's what's important here.
I love how Pablo uses the 2 chains to represent the chain activation, giving it go again. I've never done that before. I've picked it up from you, Pablo. You've converted me. This is cool. This is smart. I love the visual clarity with which all of our best players play, right? They're so precise, so clear. It's not Flesh and Blood. It's not about deceiving your opponent. It's about outplaying your opponent, outthinking your opponent, saying, this is my plan, what are you going to do about it, and just having a test of wills the entire time.
Yeah, listen, if you're going to win games because you're being greasy, that's not really going to get you to the Pro Tour, because the best players are just going to absolutely expose you, all your clownery. In this case, it's basically, this is also to the benefit of the viewers as well as saying, this is what's going on. Pablo just showing, I'm shackling, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So very, very clean. There's a Gorganian Tome from the Art of War as well. The banishment, I think it was Shadows of Ursa that was banished over here.
Yeah, and that could really extend this turn. And we talked about Pablo kind of getting blown up by those Soul Shackles not being offered much, but has put together a nice little turn off the back of very little thus far.
So again, cobbling together those big turns. Chane is kind of a slow starter, but that snowball does get out of control. Eventually, it's an avalanche of damage in so many different ways. Blue, Captain's Call, is going to offer either +2 or go again. In this case, I believe it's +2. Because Shadow of Ursa is a nice card, but it doesn't really come in as a big hit. It's 1, but the Captain's Call will allow that to be +2.
Yeah, and it looks like Shadow of Ursa is not going to get that key last banish. I mean, should Pablo have gotten the last banish there, it's possible we could have gotten to a place where we were talking about lethal damage being presented, and then you demand cards from Isaak. Things certainly would have had to break very nicely for that to be the case. But now, Isaak has the option of just soaking this up. I believe we are looking at a fusion. I think there is a Blizzard, a Breakground, and possibly a Shock Striker.
I think there's another Blizzard in his hand as well.
It could be double Blizzard. I think you're right, Flake.
And that's huge. That is huge. Blizzard is going to stop the go again, which Chane's all about, forcing them to pay for it. That could really pump the brakes on those long turns. And it's double duty because it's not just the damage that it's stopping, it's the blood debt that Pablo's going to have to answer for.
No, you're right, Flake. I'll also give you another scenario. There's some spots where Blizzard does nothing, and that's scary, right? If this is what you're relying on for defense is your Blizzards, and your opponent does have the resources available to pay through it and still pushes off a good turn, you've committed a lot for actual nothing. Sometimes it's just to an opponent's benefit to spend resources on their turn. That's what they're flooded with, but they may not have those last, however they need to complete the rest of their turn, and you give them a home for it, spending those resources on Blizzard. So it remains to be seen if that's going to be the answer in this game. It could be, though.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and stop some of the Arcane. Again, you can't do both because that 2 Arcane is coming as a package deal.
Yep.
But Isaak Krut is in a dangerous territory here at 4. But Pablo at 16 is probably going to have to, answer the bell with some pretty big hits here too.
Yeah, Shadow did not have the pitch, but did get go again via that Captain's Call. Here is that fusion.
Slide it forward.
Yep, and there are the 3 cards, Breakground, Shock Striker, as well as Blizzard. Face-up Blizzard is interesting. I mean, you know about it. There's also kind of a weird sub-game going on where you can pitch that Blizzard to your winners well, and then Pablo goes, well, he just used his Blizzard. Surprise, second Blizzard. Nobody sees it coming.
You're right, though. Exactly. And if you have 2 of them, you have the benefit of giving perhaps Pablo a false sense of security when you do see the Blizzard gone. And it might be a situation where Pablo's like, all right, he wants to push damage here, so he's going to pitch the Blizzard because you know, maybe he's just hoping that something else happens or he'll be able to withstand the onslaught. We've seen Pablo whiff on shackles before.
Yeah.
So 7, dominate, go again. It's going to buy a card from Pablo's hand. Now, oftentimes, I don't think Pablo's in any risk here of losing the game.
Pablo has some life to play with. I mean, 15 with Isaak at 4. I would say Pablo's firmly in the lead right now.
Definitely. So Pablo just started saying, okay, this is what I might commit. Again, when you're putting the face card with the card face down like that, you're kind of just doing
That was him putting his hand down. Like he says, no blocks. I'll take the 7. He's going to follow up with a winner's well. This is where Pablo wants to block, wants to prevent that frostbite. Going to move the grasp of the Arcanite forward, finds a 3 block, and Vexing Malice.
Good call. All right, so that is it pretty much almost for equipment blocks here, as the grasp of the Arcanite has been fully expended. That the Arcanite Skullcap can potentially down the line block for 1 more, but only if Pablo has less life than his opponent.
Oh,
now,
no, Flake.
There's an Eclipse, a Minnowism, and a whole bunch of stuff for the Paper Shredder.
Look at Isaak. Look at him right now. Look at him, Flake. Do you see? Hand on the head.
He moved.
He feels like he got away with one over these last 2 turns. I'm telling you, these Soul Shackles, I mean, maybe the 2 biggest Soul Shackles of Pablo's life, and they just have not brought forth any kind of momentum. Pablo has to find a way to win with very mediocre hands now.
To quote George Costanza, I think it moved. There is a blue Minnowism that's being played. It's going to be pumping up that Shadow of Ursa.
Okay, and here's how you put a hand together. You go ahead, get something going on the Shadow of Ursa, but I want to point something out, Flake. 2 blues are on the arena right now. We know that Blizzard is coming. Is Pablo going to have the resources to actually continue this turn, or is it going to be a very timely Blizzard that shuts this one down?
Well, if you come in with Blizzard over here, he's going to be taking 3 Blood Debt, which brings him to 5. That Arcanite Skullcap is still offline.
Yep.
If Isaak can find a pretty good hand to come back with, I don't know what's in Isaac's hand right now. I think there's the Blizzard is in the arsenal.
Correct.
So what is in Isaac's hand? If that is a fusion, he might give us a little bit of a peek here.
I mean, if this Blizzard is clean, right? This Blizzard just shuts down this turn. You soak 3, go to 1, and you have a big grip to fire back with, as well as Pablo taking 3 Blood Debt. So the numbers here really line up well for Isaak, just by kind of sheer luck. Honestly, it's just a really well-crafted turn that may benefit him in a huge way, and got a little lucky with those Soul Shackles, no doubt.
The problem there as well is that if you go to 1, you have to be aware of Rosetta Thorn ending the game.
Very true.
He knows there's the Blizzard showing it.
Yep.
So that is going to stuff that. He's going to pitch another
Has
Vexy
another
Val.
blue.
Beautiful.
Has another blue. Very big from Pablo there.
But there's not much else he can do here, because the follow-up here is most likely Rosetta Thorn, and then you're going to, what, are you tanking the 4 Blood Debt here, or are you trying to sneak out like a Ghostly Visit or something?
It's a real close call. Real close call for Pablo. A lot of it depends on what Isaak does here, how he reacts. Because he still has the option to block. He could have played that instant before blockers. So let's see if he wants to line something up here.
I'm trying to take a little bit of a peek here at what's in the hand. Do you got all 3 elements? Can you summon Captain Planet? We got to get there. Isaak Krut is really kind of just, the gears are turning. The hamster's on the wheel. That Blizzard could have caught him, you know, red-handed kind of thing with if that was anything but a blue, that turn was over.
I agree, and it was such a high-risk play because by using that Blizzard from the arsenal, you've now shut off the Crown of Seeds. And that's one of your main defensive tools as the Starvo, especially if you may face down a Rosetta Thorn, right? Like, you need that to be able to go ahead and cleanly prevent the damage. So really putting Isaak in a tough spot here is this Blizzard being countered. So it is going to have to go ahead and block on Shadow, and you are going to see Pablo try and prevent some of that Blood Debt. Going to go ahead, activate Chane, and deploy that Ghostly Visit.
There might be a situation here in terms of the sequencing, because he said you came forward with the Ghostly Visit ahead of the Shackle. So that, I think, is what the call is here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I think you're right, Flake, and man.
Yeah, okay. So that's exactly what happened in this case. We just got confirmation. You saw Pablo put forth the Ghostly Visit and said, oh, I wanted to Shackle before this, but Isaak said, you played this first, and this is a pivotal juncture in this game.
Flake, it may not matter, right? It may come down to nothing. It may be that Pablo finds exactly what he needs on these next Soul Shackles, or it might have just cost Pablo a finals appearance for the first ever Flesh and Blood Pro Tour. Because if it was that 6th card off the top that was going to make the difference on the next turn, he'll think about this one for a long time.
There's a major indicator when you're donating the tunic. It means that you've got the kill shot, baby. So
game's almost over.
He's got Pablo in the crosshairs. And keep in mind, There is 3 blood debt that's going to be leaking through. Pablo is at 5. If Isaak Krut has the nuts here, oh, he's at, where is he going to?
I think we have 2 blood debt leaking through in this scenario.
Correct.
We have Carrion Husk and Seeping Shadows.
Yeah, you're right. Because the other one's Eclipse. That's not blood debt.
Yep.
So 7 attack. 7 attack is 7 attack.
It's lethal. So we got to find a block here. You basically know this is all Isaak is up to. You got list. Isaak is not a believer in the Church of Pummel. So this is what it is. It's 7 damage. Going to demand some kind of response here from Pablo, but still has access to a pretty good chunk of resources on the next turn. A lot of this is going to come down to what color are those cards in Pablo's hand. How many resources will he have? And then we're going to reveal the top 5, not the top 6 cards of the deck, and see what they put into that Banish Zone, and it's going to be a sweat for everyone involved.
Yeah, this is a tough one. Again, players have been playing for 8 to 9 hours a day.
Absolutely.
For 2 days. That's just 2 days live here. Doesn't matter. This doesn't take into account all the practice, the travel.
Pablo coming in from Spain, of course. It's just a tremendous amount of demands that have been placed on these players, and there's no shame in making a mistake. Everyone does it. But despite that, having myself been in this position before, making a huge mistake in a huge moment, that doesn't make it haunt you any less. Like, it could stick with you for a long time.
Yeah, this could be one of those moments that Pablo will take home with him, but he could possibly also take home the championship as well.
Still possible.
That
Absolutely.
game is not over, and, it's tough. Look where Isaac's at. Isaac's at 2, presenting 7. Pablo also has to be aware that any damage that he's taking here will have to also take into account that if he can't convert next turn, and blood debt will get him.
Yeah. Is going to line up 2 blocks here. And I think that was very astute on your part, Flake, trying very hard to avoid falling to that blood debt. So these 2 blocks going to go ahead and prevent 4 of that damage, and we're going to move to Pablo's turn. Going to go ahead, get these 5 Soul Shackles. Let's see what's coming off the top. Tome, blank, belittle, blank, belittle, blank. There's a Bounding Demigon. There's a second Bounding Demigon. Okay, that started real bad, Flake, and got a little bit better as time went on.
Okay, I want to also make note here that Isaak Krut has a blink in hand that does not block for anything. This is not a good card.
That is scary.
So that is probably what gets pitched for the Crown of Seeds. You cycle a card, and hopefully you find something a little bit better. There's Shadow Puppetry.
Big Starks. That unlocks those Bounding Demigons from the Banish Zone, as well as giving 1 go again. So we're already getting wide. Almost everything that Pablo does on this turn is going to present lethal.
I am on the edge of your seat, frankly.
I'm glad you're here with me.
You're welcome.
You are keeping me warm, and it feels great. But right now, all the focus has to be on Pablo's turn, and can he find a way to produce lethal to end Isaak Krut's run? As we mentioned, Isaak, a beast in this building. Last time he was here, won a major TCG tournament, looking to add to his resume in the New Jersey Meadowlands Exposition Center.
There's the
that
blink.
Yeah, have to get that out of hand.
Oh!
Art of War. Okay.
All right, adding to the defense.
Yeah, this is big. Put a little defense on the back end.
Not bad. I mean, you're going to – that is like the defense – sorry, the defense or the damage that you're reducing from the Crown of Seeds is basically going to be picked up by the fact that the Art of War is going to up the defensive value of all your other cards. So it's not just the Crown of Seeds for the one soak. It's every other card is going to then be like an additional Crown of Seeds with he's going to banish a card, probably a 2-block, hoping to find and pick up some 3 blocks to really. There's the 3 block. Spinal Crusher's a 3-block.
There.
Now a 4-block.
Soak that all up. Very nice from Isaak. See what the follow-up is from Pablo. Going to go ahead and activate Chane.
Not making a mistake this time. He's going to go ahead and deliberately play the Chane. Here comes a blue Bounding Demigon. I believe this is for 2, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you are correct, Flake. This is coming in for 2.
Nice, solid.
That's still lethal. I mean, you usually not happy to see a blue Bounding Demigon. It's fine here. I mean, it still demands exactly a card from your opponent, and it's a bit of an overblock. And I just got a peek at Isaac's hand. It was either a flash or a blink. I don't even want to speculate. I don't know.
The key juncture in these parts is that you need to be able to present blocks that are like almost perfect fits. A 4 has to block a 4. A 2 has to block a 2. So you're over blocking here because if a 3 comes out next time and you don't have a 2 for it, or here is a 2 and 2.
2 and 2 from Thorn.
Now the good news is that
has Crown Prevention floating. Correct. That has not been used yet. It was a block 4 on the Demigon.
No, there was no Crown because the Art of War was played from.
Correct.
Yeah,
thank you, Flake.
But you can always go ahead and soak up one of the Arcanes. So Arcane is gonna leak through here.
Yep,
one is gonna be blocked. Now it's just 2 physical.
That's blockable. We can handle that.
Is there go again on this?
I do not believe so. I think this Evergreen
And
is going to go ahead.
Blood Dead is going to go ahead and
Make
eat him up for
block.
another 2.
Yeah.
I
so-
thought this turn was going to be a lot more devastating. I am going to be completely honest with you. I thought this was going to go 2 or 3 wide.
Let's pay attention to this next card. Well, we're not going to know exactly. It looks like it's going to be drawn, but it may have made a huge difference not getting one card deeper. And Pablo's out.
That 4 life, dude, factors in huge. That Tome of Fyendal, massive in this game.
Absolutely does. And I'm not expecting much from Isaak here. Basically nothing. But is Pablo going to be able to find that last 1 damage? I mean, Isaak basically has to get a card in Arsenal so Crown of Seas can be activated alongside Null Rune Boots to stop Rosetta Thorn. If you don't do that, you are in big trouble.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. You need to be able to tank that that extra arcane damage with the Crown of Seas, but that also handcuffs some of your cards. You're going to have to pitch for that. Isaak Krut donated his Tunic multiple turns ago.
Yeah.
That there could have been Tunic value by now. I believe when he gave it in, that was 2 turns ago. It had 1 counter. He could have been using it this turn. Either way, committing a card to the arsenal is clutch because, like you said, our Rosetta Thorn as 2 and 2. The only way to absorb that extra 2 and not lose this game is in conjunction with the Null Rune Boots and the Crown of Seeds.
We're going to go ahead and start with Mauve's guys, pitching a Bounding Demigod, and here's Vexing Malice.
Oh boy.
Flake. I think Pablo may have just punched his ticket to the finals of this Pro Tour. Isaak Krut can go ahead, activate Crown of Seeds, activate Null Rune Boots. That'll be enough to survive right now. But Mauve's guys is going to give that go again. We've played both a non-attack action and an attack action this turn. That means when Pablo fires off that Rosetta Thorn, it could be it for Isaak Krut.
That's absolutely correct, man. And this is it. Again, Vexing Malice is a card that oftentimes is just fuel. It's just blue pitch. In this case, it is lethal for Isaak Krut, and he's going to do his best to just go ahead.
Chane,
offering a go again. Maybe just try to, you know what, if you can go as wide as possible, make it happen. Peel as many cards away as Isaak Krut until you get to that Rosetta Thorn.
I think this is a done deal, Flake. This is it. Rosetta Thorn moves forward, 2 arcane damage, headed the way of Isaak Krut, and Pablo Pintor punches his ticket to that coveted final spot here at the first ever Flesh and Blood Pro Tour.